Good evening, I'm Ivana Smith, and tonight we are looking at one of the most confusing diplomatic standoffs in recent memory. Donald Trump says the United States and Iran are negotiating. Iran says that is absolutely not true. And right now, nobody outside of a very small circle of officials knows which side is telling the truth. What we do know is that the next few days could determine whether this conflict escalates further or whether diplomacy finally gets a real chance. Here is what we know. On Sunday, Trump took to Truth Social and announced that the U.S. and Iran had been holding what he called very good and productive talks. He said progress was being made, and because of that progress, he was delaying planned strikes on Iran's energy infrastructure for 5 days. That's it. No names, no details, no independent confirmation. Just a presidential post and a 5-day clock that is now ticking. Iran's response came within hours. The foreign ministry spokesperson said clearly that no negotiations with Washington had taken place. They acknowledged receiving messages through third-party countries, but drew a sharp line between that and actual negotiations. Then Iran's parliament speaker went further, calling the reports entirely fabricated and accusing the Trump administration of using fake news to manipulate oil and financial markets. 2 Iranian officials, 2 denials, and 0 room for ambiguity in their language. So we have 2 completely opposite accounts of the same events, and the gap between them is not a matter of interpretation. Either talks happened or they didn't. Either someone is lying, or these back-channel contacts are being kept so secret that even the Iranian government's own factions are not on the same page. And that second possibility is actually worth taking seriously because Iran itself is not speaking with one voice here. The foreign ministry says we got messages, but that's not negotiation. The parliament speaker says the whole thing is made up. Those are 2 different claims from 2 different power centers inside Tehran, which tells us there is a real internal divide in Iran right now. One faction may be quietly open to some form of dialogue. Another is loudly opposed. And that tension matters enormously for what comes next, because any deal would require Iran to move as a unified actor. And tonight, that unity is very much in question. Now, let's talk about the markets, because this is where things get uncomfortable. The moment Trump's statement went out, oil prices dropped 11%. Stock markets surged. Billions of dollars moved almost instantly. And several analysts, including those here at CNN, pointed out a pattern that is hard to ignore. Trump's major Iran announcements have consistently landed around market open and close times. The initial strike announcement came after markets had closed for the day. The delay decision came right before they opened the next morning. I'm not drawing conclusions here, but I am telling you that serious people are asking serious questions about that timing, and those questions deserve answers. When a geopolitical announcement moves global markets by that magnitude, the circumstances around it matter. Behind the scenes, there are some real signals worth watching. Pakistan's prime minister spoke directly with Iran's president just 2 days ago, and diplomatic sources say that call was part of an effort to bring Tehran to the table. Turkey is also being mentioned as a possible location for face-to-face talks if things progress that far. Other regional governments are quietly making calls, passing messages, and testing the temperature on both sides. So there are back channels, there are intermediaries. Messages are moving. But whether any of that constitutes genuine negotiation in the traditional sense is still very much in question. And the difference between receiving a message and sitting at a table is enormous in diplomacy. And underneath all of it sits Iran's core problem, which is trust. Tehran has long believed that it has been targeted militarily, even while diplomatic conversations were supposedly ongoing. That experience has left deep scars in how Iranian officials approach any form of engagement with Washington. So before they will commit to any formal talks, they want something very specific, a credible guarantee that they will not be struck while negotiations are happening. Right now, no one is in a position to give them that guarantee. And without it, Iran's more hardline factions have every incentive to keep saying no, which brings us to this week. Trump's 5-day window expires in the coming days. One of 3 things is going to happen. Either there is a concrete and verifiable step toward a diplomatic resolution, which would be genuinely significant and welcome news for a region that has been living under the shadow of escalation for weeks, or the delay expires, and we are back to the immediate threat of strikes on Iranian infrastructure, with all the regional consequences that would follow. Or Trump announces yet another extension, and this fog of ambiguity stretches on a little longer without any real clarity for anyone, including America's closest allies who are watching this situation with growing unease. Here is the bottom line. When a sitting U.S. president announces active negotiations and the country he is supposedly negotiating with denies it completely and publicly, that is not a normal diplomatic disagreement. That is a breakdown of the basic shared reality that any peace process depends on. Negotiations require 2 parties who at at minimum agree that they are talking to each other. That sounds like the lowest possible bar. And tonight, we have not cleared it. Because before you can negotiate an end to a war, both sides have to at least agree on whether they are sitting at the same table. And right now, one side says yes, and the other says absolutely not. We will continue to follow this story as it develops throughout the week. I'm Ivana Smith, CNN International. Stay with us.